What goes through a person's mind in their final moments, knowing their time is up? Do they face their final moments with regret, defiance, or something even more disturbing? The last words of history's most notorious criminals reveal the darkest corners of the human mind, some remorseful, some chilling, and some beyond belief. Stay with us as we uncover 7 of the most haunting final statements ever spoken. This is Kimberly LaGale McCarthy, whose final moments weren't marked by fear or regret. Instead, she spoke with faith and a strange sense of certainty. As she lay on the table, her voice remained steady, almost reassuring. "This is not a loss. This is a win. You know where I'm going. I'm going home to be with Jesus. Keep the faith. I love you all." It was a peaceful, yet unsettling farewell. How did her life lead to this moment? The Dallas-Fort Worth community was horrified in the late 90s by the brutal crimes of Kimberly McCarthy. In 1997, she was convicted of taking the life of her 71-year-old neighbor, retired college professor Dorothy Booth. McCarthy had gone to Booth's home, pretending to borrow sugar, but once inside, she attacked. She attacked Booth multiple times, struck her with a heavy candlestick, and then did something even more unsettling. She removed Booth's finger just to take her diamond wedding ring. Her motive was a desperate need to feed her unstoppable cravings. After the crime, she wasted no time pawning the stolen ring and using Booth's credit cards, but she left behind a clear trail of evidence. She was caught the very next day, and when investigators searched her home, they found the object used in the attack, which still carried Booth's DNA. In 1998, McCarthy was convicted and faced the highest penalty. During the sentencing, prosecutors argued that she may have been responsible for the passing of 2 other elderly women a decade earlier, 81-year-old Maggie Harding and 85-year-old Jetty Lucas, both allegedly targeted for financial gain. Though she was never officially charged in those cases, the accusations raised serious questions about her past, leading some to believe she had a pattern of wrongdoing. In 2001, McCarthy appealed her case and managed to secure a retrial, but the outcome didn't change. By 2002, she was sentenced once again. Her legal team? They fought tirelessly, taking the case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, but every appeal was denied. After 2 last-minute delays, her final punishment was officially scheduled for June 26, 2013. By then, McCarthy wasn't just known for her actions. She had also become a significant figure in history, marking the 500th case of its kind in Texas since the state reinstated its strictest penalties in 1976. In her final moments, McCarthy didn't plead for mercy or try to justify her actions. Instead, she spoke about faith and love, saying her passing wasn't a loss but a victory because she was going home to be with Jesus. Her words made everyone wonder, was she truly at peace, or was she simply trying to detach herself from the weight of her actions? This is Steven Nelson, who spent his life trying to make people believe he was innocent. On February 5, 2025, Nelson faced the consequences for the 2011 crime involving Pastor Clint Dobson. This crime was so brutal that it shocked the Arlington, Texas community to its core. But until his last breath, Nelson never admitted to it. He took his last breath, still claiming he was innocent. Nelson's fate was sealed on March 3, 2011, inside North Point Baptist Church. What began as a simple robbery turned into something far more terrifying. Pastor Clint Dobson and the church's secretary, Judy Elliott, were the only ones inside when Nelson came in. What happened next was brutal. Dobson was restrained with a computer cord and deprived of air using a plastic bag. His life was taken in the most horrible way. Elliott also endured a horrific attack that left him battered but still alive. Nelson didn't stop here. He took things even further. He stole Dobson's laptop, Elliot's credit cards, and even her car. As if that wasn't enough, he went on some shopping and used the stolen cards to buy clothes and jewelry. He acted as if it was just another day, but his luck was running out. Dobson's wife became anxious when she couldn't get a hold of him and decided to send someone to check on him at the church. What they found was heartbreaking. Dobson was gone, and Elliot was barely hanging on. He was unconscious and fighting for his life. Against all odds, she survived. It didn't take long for police to connect Nelson to the crime. The bloodstains on his shoes were a match for both Dobson and Elliot, and he was caught with their stolen belongings. More importantly, his fingerprints were found at the scene. But even with all the evidence against him, Nelson refused to back down. He insisted that he wasn't the main criminal, but just a lookout while two unnamed friends who committed this crime. Nelson's trial wasn't just about what happened to Dobson, it was about the kind of person he truly was. Prosecutors presented him as a volatile and dangerous person who couldn't be controlled. They pointed to his long history of trouble, both behind bars and beyond. He had clashed with prison guards, destroyed property, and even taken another inmate's life while waiting for this very trial. The evidence against him kept piling up, and when the verdict came, there was no doubt. He was convicted of a serious criminal offense. The jury didn't hesitate. They sentenced Nelson to capital punishment. But instead of showing any remorse, he made one final statement in his own way. He shattered a fire sprinkler, flooding the courtroom in a last act of defiance against the judge and jury. For years after his conviction, Nelson maintained that he was innocent and insisted he had never taken a life. But as every appeal failed and his options ran out, the state set his date for the punishment. On February 5, 2025, he was secured to the gurney as they prepared for the procedure. Some inmates go quietly, accepting their fate. Nelson didn't. His final moments were filled with urgency, his voice firm with denial. "I'm an innocent man. You got the wrong guy," he said. Was it a desperate plea for mercy? A final attempt to cling to life? Or just another lie, no one can say for sure. But as the needle went in, one unsettling question remained unanswered. Did he truly believe his own words, or had he been playing a role until the very end? Now, this is Ted Bundy, one of the most infamous figures in American history. His actions were calculated and deeply unsettling, but what makes his story even more chilling are the moments leading up to his final day on January 24, 1989. For years, Bundy swore he was innocent. He refused to admit the suffering he caused to so many women. But as his time was coming to an end, he ultimately admitted to taking 30 lives. Though many people believe that the real number was much higher. He described what he did without any remorse, almost like he was telling someone else's story. And when it came time for his final words, they were cold and casual, as if he had never cared about the lives he shattered. His last words were simple: "Give my love to my family and friends." No apology, no explanation, just calm, almost casual. Back in the 1970s, Bundy's actions spread across multiple states, leaving behind a trail of devastation and fear. The approach of his crimes, it was as clever as it was deadly. He would pretend to be injured, use crutches or a sling, and ask young women for help. Once they trusted him, Bundy would lure them to his car and attack them in the most brutal way. But the horror didn't stop there. He would return to his victims' bodies and commit more disturbing acts even after they were gone. In some cases, he even kept parts of them as gruesome trophies. After years on the run, Bundy was finally caught in 1978, which brought his reign of terror to an end. But even behind bars, his story wasn't over. His charm and intelligence turned him into a media spectacle. He kept claiming he was innocent, even as the evidence stacked up against him. In the end, he received 3 separate life-ending sentences for the unthinkable crimes he committed in Florida. In his final days, Bundy admitted to many of his crimes, but not because he felt remorse. He did it to stay in control and revealed just enough to keep people listening. Even as the truth came out, he remained distant and emotionless, still convinced he was smarter than everyone else. Ted Bundy's last words were simple, but they left an uneasy feeling. There was no real closure, no justice, and no redemption. These kinds of unsettling last words leave us wondering even more. Some fight till the end, others break down in regret. But then there are those, like Bundy, who stay disturbingly calm, almost as if they feel nothing at all. And sometimes that's more terrifying than the crimes they committed. Does remorse matter if it comes too late? Can a simple apology ever erase the damage done? Garcia Glenn White's final words weren't defiant or filled with anger. Instead, they were quiet, almost chilling in their simplicity. On April 26, 2025, White was held accountable for a tragic 1989 case connected to the passing of 16-year-old twin sisters, Annette and Burnett Edwards, and their mother, Benita Edwards. The heartbreaking incident shook Houston, Texas, and left a shocking impact on the victims' loved ones and kept White behind bars for decades. When the moment arrived, his final words took many by surprise. "I want to apologize for all the wrong I've done and the pain I've caused," White said from the chamber. And his voice? It was steady, just before the chemicals started flowing. But could an apology ever be enough? White had spent years in prison, left alone with the weight of a crime that took 3 lives. When the day of his final punishment arrived, it felt like the end of a long and painful journey. To some, his final words seemed like a sincere expression of regret. But for others, no apology, especially one spoken in the last moments of life, could ever undo the past. This is Ivan Cantu. On a Wednesday evening, back in 2000, Texas carried out the sentence for him. He was found guilty of taking the lives of his cousin, James Mosqueda, and Mosqueda's fiancée, Amy Kitchen. As his final moments arrived, he never admitted guilt. At 50 years old, he was sentenced to capital punishment, and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice recorded his last breath at 6:47 p.m. He had spent years pleading his case, but in the end, the system had already made up its mind. Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis stood by the conviction and insisted that after more than 20 years of legal battles, the courts had gotten it right. But what about Cantu's side of the story? When the sentence was finally carried out, only a small group was there to witness it: Amy Kitchen's family and a few journalists. Cantu chose not to have anyone speak on his behalf, though he wasn't alone. Sister Helen Prejean, a well-known advocate against the ultimate sentence who has supported prisoners like him before, was by his side. What stands out about Cantu's final moments is how calm he seemed, even under immense pressure. Reporters who were there said he didn't seem angry or resentful. He just kept repeating that he was innocent. His last words were filled with emotion. "Yes, ma'am, I want to speak to the Lopez and Kitchen families. I need you to know, I never took James and Amy's lives. I love my family. I love my mom, my brother, my sister. I'll be okay. I'm going to be with my dad. I love you." Even as he faced the end, he never admitted guilt. In the final hours before his sentence was carried out, Cantu's supporters fought to save his life. They claimed new evidence proved his innocence: false testimony, witnesses changing their stories, and serious mistakes in the trial. But the courts wouldn't listen. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals rejected his last appeal, and his plea for mercy was denied. Even support from big names like Kim Kardashian and Martin Sheen couldn't change his fate. Cantu's mother, Sylvia, was devastated. She never stopped believing in her son's innocence, often saying she would have given her own life if it meant saving his. But no matter how much his family fought, the case moved forward, and Cantu's sentence was carried out. It's impossible not to wonder, what if he really was innocent? Have you ever wondered what a man like Charles Karl Panzram, whose crimes were so ruthless they left a mark on history, had to say in his final moments? Did he plead for mercy? Did he break down, searching for forgiveness? Not Panzram. He didn't ask for sympathy, and he certainly didn't offer any apologies. Instead, he faced the noose with the same defiance he lived by. I was so full of hate that there was no room in me for such feelings as love, pity, kindness, honor, or decency. My only regret is that I wasn't born dead or not at all. No remorse, no hesitation. Just a man staring his fate in the face, completely unshaken. Karl Panzram wasn't just known for his crimes. He was driven by pure hatred. His actions were brutal, almost unimaginable. Acts of physical confrontation, arson, theft, and more. He claimed to have taken at least 21 lives, though many believe the real number was much higher. His victims weren't targeted for any particular reason, just people who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. His troubled path started early. As a kid, he was already getting into trouble, stealing, and landing behind bars more than once. Reform school was supposed to turn his life around, but instead, it had the opposite effect. The abuse he suffered there only fueled his anger, building a deep resentment toward the world. By the time he was an adult, he was hardened, aggressive, and out for revenge against anyone in his way. For years, Panzram bounced in and out of prison, escaping, stealing, and leaving chaos in his wake, both in the US and overseas. Guards tried to break him, but it never worked. He responded with even more aggression. What started as petty theft escalated to arson, and from there, things only got worse. But no one outruns justice forever. In 1930, after taking the life of a prison worker in Leavenworth, Kansas, he was sentenced to the harshest penalty. Did he ask for mercy? Not a chance. He welcomed it. As he stood on the gallows, waiting for the moment to come, his final words were as cold and ruthless as the life he had lived. "Hurry it up, you bastard. I could take out a dozen men while you're messing around." No regret, no fear. Just pure defiance right to the very end. Now, meet Clarence Ray Allen, whose story is nothing short of chilling. Even after being locked away, he found ways to manipulate and eliminate those who stood in his way. Found guilty of planning multiple attacks, including targeting key witnesses. Allen's actions weren't just ruthless, they were carefully planned from start to finish. What made his case even more unsettling was that he was 76 when he was sentenced, one of the oldest people ever put to row in the US. In his final days, his lawyers pleaded for mercy, arguing that taking the life of a frail, aging man served no real purpose. But in the end, the system refused to bend. Allen wasn't just any criminal. He was already serving a life sentence for taking a life when he managed to take 3 more lives, all from behind bars. He made sure those who spoke out against him never got the chance to do it again. Back in 1974, Allen set his sights on robbing Fran's Market, a small grocery store in Fresno, California, run by Ray and Fran Schledowitz. But his plan took a turn when 17-year-old Mary Sue Kitts let slip the details to the store owner's son, Brian. For Allen, that was an unforgivable betrayal. Determined to silence her, he gathered his crew and made a chilling decision. Mary Sue had to go. After a failed attempt to poison her, Lee Furrow, acting on Allen's orders, strangled her, and left her body in a canal, where it was never found. Years later, Furrow finally revealed the truth about what happened, which led to Allen being found guilty and receiving a life sentence. But Allen wasn't done yet. Even behind bars, he was still dangerous. While serving his sentence, he came up with a chilling plan. He wanted to eliminate everyone who had testified against him. He joined forces with another inmate, Billy Ray Hamilton, and together they plotted an unthinkable crime. When Hamilton was finally released, he wasted no time. He followed through on Allen's orders, turning their plan into reality. In September 1980, Hamilton walked into Fran's Market with a sawed-off shotgun. Without warning, he fired, taking the lives of 27-year-old Brian Schliedwitz and 2 teenage employees, 17-year-old Josephine Rocha and 18-year-old Douglas White. 2 others were caught in the chaos, but despite their injuries, managed to survive. Hamilton took off after the crime, but it didn't take long for authorities to track him down. When they arrested him a few days later, they found something chilling. It was a hit list. At the very top was Brian's name. With so much evidence against him, Hamilton was given the harshest penalty. But the story wasn't over yet. Investigators soon uncovered a connection between the crimes and Allen, bringing him back to court. This time, he wasn't facing charges for just one case. He was on trial for 3. One witness after another took the stand, painting a chilling picture of Allen's dangerous past and ruthless actions. The jury didn't take long to make up their minds. In the end, they found him guilty of taking 3 lives and sentenced him to the highest penalty. Clarence Ray Allen sat in his wheelchair, blind and frail, his body weighed down by age and illness. At 76, he was nothing like the man he used to be. As his final days approached, his lawyers pleaded for leniency, arguing that he was no longer a threat to anyone, that carrying out the sentence now served no real purpose. California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger refused to grant clemency, standing by the court's decision. Just a day after his 76th birthday, Allen's capital sentence was carried out on January 17, 2006. In his final moments, Allen's words carried both defiance and an unexpected sense of gratitude. "My last words will be, 'Hey, it's a good day to die. Thank you very much. I love you all. Goodbye.'" He may have come to terms with his fate, but that didn't change the decades of aggression and pain he left behind.